Sometimes we have to figure out what's worth dying for. When do we speak up? And when do we just sit down, shut up, and mind our own business? Decide for yourself today on rLounge. A new girlfriend trying to make herself nice and cozy in the ex-wife's home. Would I be the a-hole if I told my ex-husband my concerns about his girlfriend? My ex-husband and I are in our early 40s and late 30s and have been divorced for almost 3 years now. While he did not want to get divorced, we separated and have been co-parenting our 2 preteens amicably. He lives within 5 blocks of our old home, and while we have 50-50 custody, our kids freely bounce between our places and choose how they want to spend holidays. We've tried hard to create a sense of stability despite the change in our family situation, and have standing tune-up therapy twice a year to make sure we're all comfortable with the arrangements. His recent partner, Maria, 29 female, has been the only one to make past the 6-month mark, and prior to this encounter, I would say that she makes him happy and is a pretty reasonable lady. She has a very sweet and precocious son, 9, that we all adore, and generally, I thought things were going well. I invited Maria to bring her son to my place if she would like him to join my kids in private language classes. She accepted, and this has been going on for a few weeks now. My kids adore him. Last week, she said something to me that was surprising. She asked me when I would be moving my things out so that my ex and her could be able to cohabitate. I was taken aback and confused, asking her to clarify. My current home? This home? And she nonchalantly told me, "You don't need all this space for 3 people. We wouldn't have space at X's current condo." Her son looked so awful and embarrassed at this point that I was like, this conversation would need to include my ex. My kids and I live in a brownstone that my ex and I purchased together 50-50, but that I have been renovating since before the divorce. My ex lives in a nice condo that's spacious, but is still a little bit of a man cave. Later in the evening, I got a text message from her son that was pleading for me to forgive his mom, that he's sorry for his mom and to not tell my ex. I feel awful, but I think I should let my ex know this conversation occurred and let him handle it. Would I be the a-hole if I told my ex-husband my concerns about his girlfriend? Edit. I'm the single owner of the house. My ex insisted throughout the divorce that I keep it. We do co-own his condo, though. Before our divorce, we owned both properties outright. Our divorce was very amicable. He insisted I keep the brownstone. After the divorce, I had my lawyer help me transfer the brownstone deed, and my ex signed the documents. He just never did that with the condo. I asked him a few times, and the answer has always been hand-wavy. I'm his ex-wife, not going to continue nagging him on something he's dragging his feet on. The awkward conversation happened in person. I shut it down because her son was there, and I could tell he understood the situation and felt uncomfortable. He texted me afterwards from his own phone. He's a special kid in the best way, very mature and advanced for his age. The thing is, I don't think it's been discussed between them at all. I think she may have just assumed. When we separated, he insisted that I keep the house and that I didn't need to buy him out. The house belonging to me is ironclad. I just got nervous and blurted out that we'd discuss it because her son was there. On to the community comments. Superb Space 7318 says, "Not the a-hole. Your ex-husband should be the one having that conversation, so you absolutely need to share this with him. Weird that the 9-year-old has a better emotional gauge than his mom, though." The OP replies, "He's a special kid in the best way, very mature and advanced for his age." Oh dear, yeah, I'd say something. That was really presumptuous of her to say that, especially right in front of her child. And why would she want to uproot you guys when her and your ex can just buy a new place? And they haven't been even dating for all that long. Just seems off that she thinks she's in a position to be making these requests. Update 3 months later. I procrastinated bringing up what Maria said and basically told myself, assume best intentions, awkward curiosity. My thought process was that it's my home and she'll have to cart me out of here on the back of a hearse. I admit, I was also nervous about raining on his happiness and did not want to be perceived as a bitter ex. The kids had a grand time at camp, and a month or so ago later, we had family dinner with both sets of grandparents. My ex brought Maria, and it started out great. Everyone welcomed Maria and her son. Maria was helping me finish up dessert in the kitchen, and I was patting myself on the back for the goop-level blended family dynamic when she made an off-the-cuff comment about how she'd host parties here. Ex came in with the kids, overheard and asked, "Oh, did Low Stakes offer for you to host?" Maria's son just burst into tears and started apologizing. It was genuinely one of the most awkward experiences of my life. Long story short, the entire family has learned that X had a vasectomy after divorce and is not looking to remarry anytime soon. Afterwards, I talked to him about the previous interaction along with showing him the text messages. They're no longer together. I'm worried about Maria's son, although I recognize it's not my place. Unsure what I can do there. Edit. Some people ask why I laughed, haha, at the end of my edit, that I owned half his condo. It was mainly out of uncomfortable irony. X is extremely driven and brilliant in his career, but disorganized in life. Let's check in with the community some more. Crazy Dog Lady says, I think it may be time to sit down and have a private conversation with X about her comments to you. You could approach it in a way where you are asking for him to clarify the situation to her and let her know that you do in fact own the house by yourself, and that X technically has no claim over the house. If you approach it delicately enough and assure him that you don't want to start any issues or come in between their relationship, I think it could go over better than you think. By your post, it seems that you and X seem to have a healthy level of communication that is represented by your ability to co-parent so wonderfully. X could very well be telling Maria behind the scenes that he does still have ownership of the house, and she may be misunderstanding the situation. Or she may be assuming and overstepping. Either way, a conversation does need to happen so it does not sour your co-parenting relationship and cause friction or resentment on your end. As for the child, you could explain those feelings to your ex and let him know of your love for this child and encourage him to approach the conversation with Maria gently. Her son seems very intelligent and like he has been dealing with his mom's constant overstepping for years, now that he has developed an instant anxiety and fear over how people react to her when she does this. Unfortunately, the way she acts does directly affect her son's life, and in this case, it could potentially affect his living situation. However, with that being said, if you are avoiding having a conversation to squash this issue because of the feelings of a child that neither you or your ex are related to, you risk ruining the co-parenting relationship you and your ex have clearly worked hard to cultivate. Just be gentle and kind, and I think this will turn out better than you expect. I wish you all the luck. I think it's great that you and your ex have been able to co-parent and maintain such a healthy relationship. I feel like next time, it might be okay to just mention any awkward interactions earlier on. You and your ex seem to trust each other in that way. I'm glad his girlfriend opened her trap like that. She really showed her true colors. But her poor son, I'm embarrassed too. Poor thing. It's a shame that he's had to learn who and how not to be based on his mother's actions and behavior. Would you have told your ex right away? Do you think she would have been overstepping? Let us know your thoughts. Up next, ask yourself, is it worth the headache? Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my brother-in-law's new wife in front of everyone? For context, it was not my intention, but it was absolutely how it played out. My brother-in-law, husband's brother, was away for college for 4 years and ended up eloping with a woman he had known for 7 months. None of us knew her, not that it mattered, but we just met her for the first time back a few months ago. She seemed pleasant, a bit shy, which is to be expected, and a bit rough around the edges. No big deal at all, but just like fidgety, darting her head and looking behind her shoulder like someone was standing there when no one was. We found out a few short weeks later that she has bipolar, unmedicated, so her behaviors absolutely made sense. I'm an RN as well as a social worker, and I also have bipolar, but I'm medicated. On Saturday, mother-in-law invited the whole family down for dinner, and brother-in-law and his new wife, Hannah, show up and we get to chatting at the dinner table about her diagnosis. She brought it up, not me, but she knew I knew about it, so it started as small talk, I believe. Well, it didn't take long for her to dive deep into this conversation, using her arms and hands to talk, getting a bit loud. No problems, the family is loud, so she fits right in. But then she became angry, over nothing. Started saying stuff like, "It absolutely effing repulses me that people without bipolar try claiming they are manic when mania is strictly a bipolar thing." I wasn't rude by any means, but I did correct her, quietly, and said, "Actually, mania comes in all forms and is not limited to bipolar disorders. Even people with brain tumors have been known to have manic episodes." She immediately said I was wrong, that her doctor told her that it was strictly a bipolar thing, etc. So I just stood firm and said, "He's wrong," and even pulled up my medical ebook to show her the paragraph that speaks on mania and everything that can cause an episode. She refused to read it, so I just turned to my husband, who wasn't paying attention to us, and said, "Honey, you're a doctor. What causes manic episodes?" He starts listing off multiple things, including manic depressive episodes, seasonal affective disorder, postpartum psychosis, or schizoaffective disorder. Well, Hannah was pissed. She immediately said that we were just trying to one-up her and that she knew what she was talking about. My husband immediately said, "Obviously, not if you're going to sit here, argue, and gatekeep symptoms of illnesses against two medical professionals." He then turned and walked off, leaving us at the table with both brother-in-laws, sister-in-law, and mother-in-law looking on. Hannah then starts crying, saying I embarrassed her on purpose for no good reason, other than my pride, and stormed out of the room after screaming for everyone to stop staring at her. Brother-in-law is telling me I should have just shut my mouth and storms after her. I'm really confused if I'm the a-hole here. ETA, making an ad to include some key points here. I was quiet throughout this entire conversation. I was speaking so no one else could hear, which is exactly why my husband, who was sitting directly beside me, has no idea what we were talking about until I brought him into the conversation. She did not appear to be in any sort of episode when the conversation began, other than the first initial spew of how it repulses her. She calmed down immediately afterwards, and only showed how manic she was after raising her voice at my husband for simply stating what can cause a manic episode that does not include bipolar. I was having what I thought was an academically correct conversation with an individual as small talk, mentioned in my post. She was the one who became loud and belligerent. No one at that table had any clue what me and Hannah were even talking about until Hannah started screaming at me over the table. It is my job as a RN to educate individuals whom are uneducated on their illness. So yes, that probably played a part. It's more dangerous to be uneducated than it is to be educated, and to be blunt, her doctor giving her false information to begin with is troubling in itself. Let's see how the community reacts to this one. Sam Spade PI says, not the a-hole. I hate it when I'm having what I think is a strictly academic discussion with someone and they start to take it all personally. Boeing 36780 says, not the a-hole. Hannah's diagnosis does not give her a license to rearrange reality as she sees fit, and she brought up the topic in the first place. Endural Matt says, not the a-hole. She embarrassed herself by doubling down. Sounds like you gave her plenty of opportunities to retract her statement. Regretful Respawn says, not the a-hole. She embarrassed herself. Your husband is absolutely right. She's gatekeeping her illness. I'm not sure where you would proceed from here, but going forward I would probably go low contact. If her whole family is with her on this, it'll constantly be brought up that this argument happened. I'd save myself the headache. I think it's hard to say in a situation like this. Sometimes it's not worth dying on the hill. Gotta pick and choose your arguments. I mean, she is new to the family. She could have just been really nervous. I think sometimes we have to let things go. What do you think? Our next OP stirs the pot. Am I the a-hole for giving my mother-in-law a copy of her own house key when she asked to get a copy of mine? My hubby and I recently bought a new home together. His mom started pestering us for a copy of the key in case of an emergency. I told her about the rule we have, and that is only residents get to have a copy of the key. She kept complaining and even got the family involved. Last week, she demanded a copy of the key sent to her. I decided to grab the copy of the key to her house that my husband was keeping for years and sent it to her with a note saying, only residents get a copy, so this copy is for the home you reside in. She was beyond livid about it. She told the family and I was called names. Now hubby is complaining about how I escalated and made a mistake by upsetting her further instead of just sticking to no. Let's see the community's judgments. 1962 Michael says, not the a-hole. When I read the title, I thought you were going to pretend it was the correct key and see how long it would take for her to try it. Absolutely, she is the a-hole for pestering you about this when it is clearly your choice. But yeah, your husband has a point about you stirring the pot. 1962 Michael wanted to follow up. I would love to know what mother-in-law thinks could be an emergency such that her having a key would resolve that emergency. It would have to be something like you left your pet inside and one of you is traveling and the other is in the hospital. Or you have an alarm system to let you know about a leaking pipe, but you're stuck at work. Mother-in-law to the rescue. The point is, if you don't want or expect mother-in-law to respond to these emergencies, then she doesn't need a key. I think the emergency she's thinking of is she is in your area and she wants to use your bathroom. Edit. Thanks for the many lists of reasons you might want someone to have your key. I wanted to know what emergencies mother-in-law needs the key for. Point is, it's OP's decision whether she wants anyone, if not mother-in-law, to have a key. Pepper90210 says, not the a-hole, but I think the stunt made the situation worse. She seems exhausting, but I'm more concerned about why your husband isn't stepping in and telling her to stop asking. Critical Musician 630 says, everyone sucks here. Your husband nailed it. You escalated when you could have just kept saying no or ignored her. Also, I'm sure he would like to have a key to his mom's place in case of an emergency and you took that away. Mother-in-law sucks for obvious reasons. She should have accepted the first no. Edit to add, everyone saying she made a copy of mom's key and sent it is incorrect. OP states I decided to grab the key to her house that my husband was keeping for years and sent it to her. She did not go make a copy. She grabbed the copy. It was her husband's key to his mom's for emergencies and she took it away. That crosses so many lines and I get why her husband is upset. She escalated. You don't go from no to stealing your husband's property and getting rid of it. Yeah, again, I think sometimes we have to let things go and really not poke the lion. I feel like it would have been fine to just give her the key without telling her it was her house key. Ignorance is bliss. And then, as she tried to get in and said anything about the key not working, you'd know that she tried to overstep her boundaries and try to get into your house without letting you know. Am I wrong? Thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, share that with us in the comments below.